Hey everyone, Meinke from MLive&apos, joined by Justin Rogers. I don't want to speak for you, Justin, but I know when I do interviews or I talk to people or whatever, the receiver position battle is one of the things that gets brought up the most. There seems to be a lot of interest and intrigue on who wins that third starting job, who wins the fourth and fifth reserve jobs. And the answer is we don't know at this point. There's a lot of competition still going on. No one's really, I think, separated from the pack. We do have some favorites for those jobs. I think we both like Lance Moore and Corey Fuller to make the team. But even with those guys, you don't know who necessarily is going to win that third starting job. So starting there, who do you see at this point leading for that third starting job?
Lance Moore. I think that's the guy. Going on rotations, Corey Fuller's gotten a lot of work in that spot, and what they've done is they've either moved Calvin inside or they've moved Golden Tate inside. I still think Moore seems to have kind of this instant chemistry with Stafford. I think it's only going to continue to grow. They didn't give him a massive amount of guaranteed money, but they gave him enough to think that he had kind of a leg up in the competition from the start, and I haven't seen anything to take away from that standing.
Yeah, Lance Moore, when he was brought in, the Lions build his experience in the scheme. He played for six of the 7 years that Joe Lombardi was in New Orleans. For 6 of those years, Lance Moore was there, and so he's very familiar with the scheme and the scheme that Lombardi brought here. And that experience was something they touted when he signed here. I remember Matt Stafford had said the morning that Lance Moore was in for the visit, they had breakfast together. They were just talking about the scheme, and it was amazing to him how similar the schemes were and how much knowledge he had of what they were doing in Detroit, even though he hadn't been in Detroit yet. And so that's something they value in the huddle. And I know there's for as much focus as there's put on Stafford and his problems last year, I know there's a lot of confusion and problems with the receivers and their routes and their understanding of the offense. And there's a lot of missed routes, particularly early in the year. So having a guy as seasoned as he is in this scheme, I think, is valuable for the Lions. Having said all that, I think Corey Fuller at this point is maybe ahead of him, for that third starting job. He's the Lions. First of all, the staff really likes him. He's big. He's fast. He provides a vertical threat, which Lance Moore or really none of the other secondary receivers provide, and that's something that can be valuable because he's going to see all kinds of single coverages opposite Calvin and opposite Golden Tate. So at this point, I think they'd like Corey Fuller to win that job. But if he doesn't do enough, and to this point, I'm not sure that he has, Lance Moore for sure would be there.
Yeah, and both those guys went to Atlanta, and they worked with Stafford when they had that little boot camp with the receivers. And I think it's such a small thing, but that does kind of give them the leg up on the competition to just get that extra time with the quarterback, the extra time with the receiving group to just familiarize themselves with the scheme, with the routes heading into camp, and I think that's helped them this camp.
So that's the third spot, and with the third and fourth spot, but there's still a lot of competition for the fifth spot and maybe the sixth spot if they go with 6. You've got Jeremy Ross, who does some things on special teams as well. You've got Ryan Broyles, who's a second-round pick from just a couple of years ago. TJ Jones, I know we both like what we've seen from him over the past few days of camp and in the preseason game. He's there as well, 6th-round pick from last year. Greg Salas, the big superstar from last week in the game, 5 catches, 92 yards. You can throw Andrew Peacock out there if you want. There's a whole host of...
You can throw Andrew Peacock.
There's a whole host of receivers out there who are battling for those last jobs, or last job, maybe 2. Who do you like at this point for those spots?
Man, Salas, people are jumping to the conclusions with him a little bit, I think. Very nice game against the Jets. I mean, I don't want to discount what he did. 5 receptions, 92 yards, a score. Coaches rewarded him today, as I think coaches should, and he got some work with the first teams or the higher-end second units, made some really nice catches again in practice tonight. He's put himself in the conversation. He's got a lot of experience, has 50 or so receptions as an NFL receiver, so the look is merited. I still think it's all going to kind of hinge on the return game. Is Jeremy Ross going to be a return man? Because if Jeremy Ross is the return man, I'm going to keep saying Jeremy Ross's full name through this whole thing. He's the 5th receiver, and he's still getting some work with the first and second teams as well. I don't think he's showing very much, but until someone unseats him for that return job, he's on this roster.
Yeah, I agree. And if he doesn't win those jobs, I think he's off the roster. And we've talked about this, but I just feel like that's what it comes down to for Jeremy Ross. He's not good enough as a standalone receiver to make this team at that position. He needs the special team stuff. And if Abdullah or TJ Jones beat him out, then I think Jeremy Ross gets cut. I think he's one of those cuts. And I think that it's I think he's still the leader for the return jobs at this point, but TJ Jones is making ground. I'm not sure. I don't know how much of a serious contender he is for those jobs, but I do know the Lions like what they saw out of him as a punt returner in that game against the Jets. And you don't want to read too much into one preseason game, but he showed some ability back there, a little bit of elusiveness. I don't call like the consistency back there. Each of his punt returns was at least 14 yards. Each of the three. 2 were called back because of penalties on Evan Lawson, but even the one that stood was 24 yards. And so he was productive back there, had some good vision, some good blocks in front of him. Then he used those blocks, and those were some issues they had last year. And so I think if TJ Jones continues to show on special teams, he could make movement against Ross or maybe even Ryan Broyles. And I think maybe at this point those two guys are even. I thought coming into camp Broyles was ahead of Jones.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that anymore.
I fully agree. And what I want to see is he was the 4th return man in that game. And I'd like to see Jones get some work with more of the second blocking unit, give him a chance to shine against a higher level of competition and see if he can handle it. He's seen mostly third team work in practice, some second team work. He's made some very nice grabs. He's shown pretty good hands. He runs pretty good routes, but the competition level hasn't been enough for me to fully assess what his value can be. I don't want to say I'm giving up on Ryan Broyles. It seems a bit harsh, but it seems like the window's shutting there quickly on a guy that, I think we kept waiting and waiting and waiting for the production to finally hit with a guy that, is one of the most talented college receivers ever, and just a series of unfortunate injuries. He's made some catches in camp, but separation hasn't always been there. He made a great catch today in one-on-ones, but he had to fight to take away a ball from R.J. Stanford. Yeah. And who's R.J. Stanford? I don't want to.
I thought he was your boy. I thought he was your boy.
Well,
that's another video.
Yeah. So, I'm becoming less and less confident that Broyles is going to make this roster.
Yeah, I'm right with you, and that was the first thing that came to my mind. I can't remember if you were standing next to me for that play or not, but I saw that play, and my first reaction was, nice play from Ryan Broyles. They both went up for the ball. They both came down with it. He wrestled it away from Stanford, and then I thought, that's R.J. Stanford, and Broyles has no separation. I think that's an issue we've seen is the lack of separation from Ryan Broyles. Also, something that I've been hearing a little bit about him is that he struggles with creativity in the offense. If he's told to do a route and it's this many steps, he's going to do that many steps every single time, even if there is an opening somewhere else. He has a hard time freelancing and doesn't have a great feel maybe for finding the soft spots in the defense. I've heard that's an internal criticism of Ryan Broyles, and it makes a little sense when you consider how little separation he gets sometimes.
It's crazy considering how much of a zone buster he was in college. I mean, that was probably his calling card, was he was able to find pockets and zones, and one of the greatest statistical college receivers of all time, largely because of his ability to beat zone coverage. Why it's not translating to the NFL, I don't know.
It could be an activity too, just not being on the field a whole hell of a lot in his now 3-year career. Let's wrap this up, Justin, and I'm putting you on the spot, as I like to do. 5 names, top 5 receivers.
That are going to make this
five guys, yeah, your projection at this point.
Oh, well, I think we've got the 4 in Kelvin, Golden, Fuller, and Moore.
Yep.
That 5th one, man. Greg Salas, why not?
Wow.
I know. And the only reason I say that is because he's shown the most right now. If Jones does go out and show more on punt return and give him more an opportunity, I think that's probably going to end up being my guy.
My guy is Jeremy Ross. Okay. To me, he's still the best punt returner and kick returner on this team at this point. I think they hope in time it'll be Abdullah. I think that was part of the package when they brought him in. They were hoping he would be a guy. But we've seen some, especially early in camp, not as much recently, but some issues with depth perception, just fielding a ball cleanly, and also he looked a little conservative, I thought, on punt return in the Jets game. And so I think just at this point, Ross is the guy they trust the most in special teams, and with Caldwell, when it comes to special teams, trust is a major thing. They know what they're getting in Ross. I think that'll help him make the team, at least coming out of the gates. He'll have to continue in that job. But I think out of the gates, Jeremy Ross will be my 5th guy. But I think TJ Jones is trending up, and he's a guy to watch going forward.
I think it'll be interesting to see the fan reaction if Jeremy... And I don't know, fans are, I think, overly hard on him. But they brought in a ton of competition for his job. if he wins it, he wins it. I mean, I think there'll be a negative reaction, but he'll have earned it by beating out, multiple contenders for that position.
Absolutely. We'll be back on the practice fields Tuesday afternoon. I think it's a 3:30 practice, if I'm not mistaken.
You'll be an hour and a half late.
2 o'clock tomorrow?
Yeah.
We'll be here at 2 o'clock tomorrow. That's why I keep him around. He's Justice Rogers. I'm Kyle Meinke. We are MLive. Keep it right here.